Hi, welcome to Up Your Nerd Cred. Did you used to know everything that was happening in the Marvel and DC universes? Did finding out that some superheroes are from Marvel and some are from DC blow your mind? Has keeping track of everything that's happening there, and then realizing that we're only talking about the comics universes, not the cinematic ones, and all these different universes with their own multiversal crises have all gotten a little bit out of hand? Don't worry. Up Your Nerd Cred is here to talk about the gods cosplaying as men, the men cosplaying as gods, and how much the cinematic universes are really leaving out. At the end of each episode, you'll hopefully know a little bit more than you did and can up your nerd cred. I'm your casual nerd host, CiCi. I'm occasionally weirded out when I think of how some actors ended up working with the same people multiple times because, how am I supposed to feel about Scarlet Witch and Pietro as a couple in a completely different movie? Why do I rewatch Perfect Score and end up startled that Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans have worked together outside of the MCU? I grew up watching The Nanny, and watching Gracie be in college and hitting on Claire the cheerleader in Heroes was a moment. It was a lot.
Honey, if you think it's weird the actors Wanda and Pietro being a couple in a different movie, you don't want to hear about the Ultimate Universe version of the characters. Hey all, I'm your co-host AM Diaz, the gay comic geek who just finished rewatching X-Men Evolution in preparation for the Uncanny Experience celebrating the show's 25th anniversary, and God, I feel old because I remember when that show came out.
No, I'm so sorry. That could not have come out 25 years ago because 25 years ago we were in high school.
Don't do the math. Don't do the math. Stop doing the math.
I'm not going to do the math anymore. That's too much. No, we are not old. We are young and vibrant, and boomers are convinced that millennials are still 25 somehow.
No, we do look it still, some of us.
Hydration and not being racist. Those two things work together really, really well. There's a reason why Paul Rudd looks as good as he does. It's because he drinks his water and he's not racist. So anyway, since though you have been a X-Men kind of guy for the last 25 years, that does mean in fact that you ain't new to it. You're true to it. And so as our resident expert nerd, I'm going to be asking you all kinds of burning questions each week. But I think the first question should be what are we nerding out about this week? And as a reminder, listeners, you can nerd out about all kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be heroes and villains. Somebody is being the main character on Twitter or Threads or whatever else. I'm pretty sure that the fact that the possible mistress of Prince William had to come out and be like, no, I am not the actual mistress, means that the palace is not doing a good enough job on keeping all of their stuff locked down. And realistically speaking, the people who are complaining about not getting published on Book Talk are so annoying. I'm gonna have to start hitting not interested on folks. So what are you nerding out about this week?
Well, I've been talking about it for the past few weeks, but I am preparing for the Uncanny Experience, which at the time of this recording is coming up soon. When this episode drops, I will be on my way to Minneapolis, preparing for the weekend of mutants, cosplay, classes, and some shenanigans.
Yeah, you say that, but realistically speaking, you're getting ready to be wearing blue paint all over the place.
All weekend. I will be the Incredible Nightcrawler for Saturday and Sunday. I will have 3 to 4 costume changes during the course of that.
Mm-hmm.
So on Saturday, I will be the traditional Nightcrawler. On Saturday night will be the Hellfire version of Nightcrawler.
Fancy pants.
Of course. And then on Sunday, as I mentioned before, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of X-Men Evolution, and I will be doing the Evolution Nightcrawler, complete with Ryder Strong, bangs, and mullet. Yeah.
It's not as goofy as Superman's mullet back in the day, so I feel like...
I don't know. I don't think anybody could really pull off a mullet back then.
Back then, no. I've seen a few mullets recently that are impressive, but Overall, no. The important part, though, is you're going to be meeting all of these people, all of these voice actors. You're going to be doing so much work completely covered in blue paint.
And doing a terrible German accent because remember, this is an immersive event, and all the official X-Men cosplayers will be in character throughout the weekend. And for those who are attending, there will be a small badge on the cosplayer costumes that will notify you to which of us is an official cosplayer and which one is one of your fellow students.
Oh, see, that is handy because I have definitely run into situations where people have asked me questions thinking that I was in charge of things, and I'm just like, why are you looking at me? I am not in charge of anything here. So that's good to have. So my my weekend. So last weekend I was actually at my family reunion. Honestly, I love a Black family reunion. My mom's whole side of the family gets together every year and they have like picnics, they have gatherings, they have dinners. Everybody has like a matching t-shirt that like is just like, here's all the branches of all the family, and it's very cool. And I'm too much of an introvert to go most of the time. My first cousins are actually the host family this year, and somehow my desire to remain at home was thwarted by my desire to hype up the people that I love. So I packed up husband Guy and I packed up the toddler and we went to the reunion. And I'm not gonna lie, it was nice to get out of NYC for a minute, but getting back into my own bed after being gone, it's like getting an extra like mozzarella stick or two in your container. It's like that moment when you've really, really had to use the restroom and you finally get home and everything just, I love my bed so much. It's the best thing ever. Anyway, we're gonna take a quick break while I go and contemplate my bed, and we will be back soon to Up Your Nerd Cred. Hi. Welcome back to Up Your Nerd Cred. So, the question burning me up this week is what is the goofiest villain that we've seen in the various rogues galleries?
That's a lot of villains.
That's a lot of villains. I know. But so one of the things that we have talked about in the last few episodes is how the Comic Code Authority has really impacted a lot of the different villains that we've been able to get. As you'll recall, AM mentioned how like Catwoman was too much of a femme fatale, and she got away with it a little bit too much to be able to be allowed in Silver Age comics.
I mean,
Honestly,
a lot of characters. Joker, for example, started off as a serial killer, and then he was just literally treated like a clown during the Silver Age.
yeah, well, the biggest problem is that the Silver Age and the Comics Code Authority, honestly, there's like a whole early version of the satanic panic that we ended up with in the 80s. And a lot of it was spurred on by Friedrich Wertham. And this man wrote Seduction of the Innocent because he's just like, oh, we can't possibly have comics because people enjoy them too much. Okay, that's not exactly what he said, but
I mean, it was the equivalent of what happens every year, right? Or every decade. We had the people in the 80s going after Dungeons and Dragons. We had people in the 90s going after video games and certain types of music. There's always those pearl-clutching busybodies who decide to ruin fun for everyone because it doesn't speak to them specifically.
won't somebody think of his children? Whose children?
That is exactly what happened, because with this book in particular, came out at the peak of the McCarthy era, where communists around every corner, homosexuals in every closet, and they're all out to get the children. So we got to protect them from anything that makes them think independently and doesn't make them conform to the very stringent social and gender, limitations that were imposed by adult busybodies who honestly just enjoyed kicking up fear.
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds vaguely indoctrinate, but I don't want to get too deep into it. So let's talk a little bit about the comic book code. Like, so the code of 1954. I realized that 1954 was not the be all end all of the comics era, but here's a bunch of rules that were there. Like, we're going to start with, like, I'm going to mention the preamble that they have about like what they wanted to do with everything, and then the rules about how they plan to achieve it. So they started out by saying that, oh, we want to make a positive contribution to contemporary life, so the industry must seek areas for developing sound, wholesome entertainment. The people responsible for writing, drawing, printing, and publishing comic books have done a commendable job in the past and have been striving towards this goal. Yeah, they've done a commendable job, and they've been striving towards the goal of what? Being able to write the same stories over and over again. Like, the code is super restrictive and it makes storytelling difficult. It's hard.
100%. Creators at the time constantly talked about how difficult it was because the stories they wanted to tell, the dark, crime stories, the monster stories, all these things, but they were afraid because the government was trying to impose limits on free speech. They were
Yeah.
Anybody who did anything that didn't fit into the social norms were under investigation. They were being brought before different committees at the Washington and being like basically in a witch hunt. Are you a communist? Are you a homosexual? Are you trying to push these things onto the children?
Are you keeping America from being great? But no, like just in general, it's really hard to tell a story if the outcome is predetermined, okay? That is why Hadestown is a single musical, not the entirety of the genre. All right.
I mean, it's the same. It's kind of the same issue that happened with Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry wanted it to have no conflict, no interpersonal issues, which made
So
storytelling
the fully automated luxury gay space communism.
yeah. And he wanted to where like nobody had any beef with anybody else, and writers were like, okay, but what do we do for storytelling?
True. You do need to have conflict to be able to tell a story, generally speaking. Like there's of the story structures, conflict is kind of required because nobody really wants to hear a story about how Mr. Smith got up and went to work and came home and went to bed and did that same thing every day for 10 years. There's no pathos there. But, so, here we go. You ready for some of the rules? Crimes shall never be presented in such a way as to create sympathy for the criminal, to promote distrust of the forces of law and justice, or to inspire others with the desire to imitate criminals. Like, okay, so great. We are going to make sure that everybody knows that the crime is bad. And to make sure that we know that crime is bad, no comic shall explicitly present the unique details and methods of a crime. Honestly, that one I can a little bit get behind depending on what the crime is, because to a certain extent, this is why we don't have bomb instructions and ghost gun instructions all willy-nilly. You gotta go in the dark web for that. So methods of a crime I can let go, but then they have instances of law enforcement officers dying as a result of criminal activity should be discouraged. So we cannot have the cops get boo-boos because of the
Yeah, which is really funny because you saw a lot of cops die in the in the Golden Age.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused by all of this, because
Well, they didn't have the
it's
restrictions
not
back
quite
then.
a full. Right, no, I know. It's not quite a full Worf effect situation where the theory that to show off how strong you are whenever you're coming into a thing, you got to go and beat up like the big guy. And so, like in Star Trek, that was Worf. But are cops dying the version of the Worf effect that we really needed to promote? Who knows? But they also commented that scenes dealing with or instruments associated with Walking Dead, torture, vampires and vampirism, ghouls, cannibalism, and werewolfism are prohibited. Which, were they mad about competing with the Mummy and Boris Karloff and everybody else? What was going on with that?
They were scary. That was it. It was back then, horror comics were a very active thing and very popular. The horror genre and the true crime dramas and stuff like that in comics was a big seller.
Mm-hmm.
But, they were considered too scary and too adult and too violent. So for a long time, basically any kind of that involved death proper was prohibited. So they could have monsters, but they could be lumbering alien monsters or inhuman swamp monsters, and they'd be like, oh, well, that's just something that's not realistic. But bloodsuckers or zombies where they're mutilating bodies, too much for the kiddies.
So on one hand, I can respect the conceit of just having the Batman's no-kill rule being a result of them cracking down on all of the rules and making sure that everything is nice and sweet and polite and innocent and everything. And I struggle with that though, because that is the exact spot where this kind of fantasy imagination should be, is written down in
No, and
Mary Shelley wrote about Frankenstein's monster because she was annoyed about the dudes that she was stuck in a castle with all weekend.
No, and that's fair, but again, it was remember, this was the same kind of people who nowadays would be trying to ban video games because they're too violent. Or saying that, Harry Potter is satanic. It's written by a bigot, but it's not really satanic.
Yeah, Harry Potter itself is not satanic. There's really no mention of, unless, of course, we're talking about My Immortal, the infamous Harry Potter fan fiction.
Yeah, let's not. Let's not. I pushed that out of my brain a long time ago, and I feel like we're dating ourselves again if we bring that up.
I feel like you have not had enough dramatic readings of Ebony, Dementia, Darkness,
Yeah,
Ruby
yeah,
Ray.
no, 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 no.
I'm just
Bad
saying, like,
Kira.
if we're
Bad.
gonna talk
That is
about
a bad
villains,
Kira. That is a
you know
bad
what?
Kira.
You know what?
No,
We did
no.
establish that vampirism is not allowed. As an aside, with that, actually, illicit sex relations are to be neither hinted at nor portrayed.
Golden Age comics were
Violent
really horny.
violent love scenes as well as sexual abnormalities are unacceptable. So,
Okay, so
you know,
no two penises?
I mean, do they count like dripping candle wax on each other as violent?
Yeah, back then they did. Basically, anything that was not missionary was considered, abnormal. And even that wasn't allowed in comics back then.
I mean, didn't Lucy and Ricky have two separate beds and then still end up with a baby somehow?
Huh?
Mm. So
But
I
also
mean, like
remember, they didn't want
something.
them to show the pregnancy.
Yeah, they had that whole thing about like oh, like we're going to be like we're going to break ground and recognize that Lucy, a married lady who has been living with her husband for amounts of time, is pregnant. I have had way too many people ask me about when it is that I'm going to be having kids, like directly after I got married, for me to sit there and be. I don't understand how Lucy being pregnant in wedlock was such a struggle, but you know what? That's because I'm a 1985 baby, not a 1935 baby.
Yeah, well, you just gotta remember that they need to keep things 100% squeaky clean for the kiddies back then.
Yeah, well, as long as we don't hear about bad things that exist in the world, then bad things won't actually exist in the world, as long as we don't know about it.
Yep, and that's the way they treated it back then.
Yeah. So here's another rule they had, one that I feel like makes a little bit of sense based on some of the different kind of comic books that were out there, but the sale of picture postcards,
Oh,
pinups, art studies, or any reproduction of nude or semi-nude figures is prohibited.
yeah,
So,
well, I mean, they didn't put like porn in the comics back then in the Golden Age, but they were willing to draw, scantily clad or borderline nude characters in like the background and stuff like that. But
I mean, isn't this the time frame of the Tijuana Bible as well? Where
uh-huh.
it's a whole bunch of people drawing people in. To be fair, I mostly know
Yeah,
about
but they
that from
conflated
watching Wasp.
they conflated the Tijuana Bibles with regular comics and assumed that the same thing were happening in both. Because keep in mind, the people who wrote these rules and stuff probably weren't reading the comics.
The existence of breast is not an aggressive sex act.
To the mindset
Like,
of the night,
curves are not
honey,
sex.
1950s sex, despite the fact it was running rampant everywhere, was not allowed to be discussed on in media because it was too much, too sexual, too disgusting, too perverted. Because remember, this was also the time where the religious, right really started to take a hold in America. The ideas of like,
Yes.
God being part of everything started really becoming a thing. The church was moral authority.
Yeah, this is when they added the under God to the Pledge of Allegiance, I think, too, to combat the scourge of
Somewhere around that
communism.
time, yeah.
Yeah, because
And yeah,
the godless communists, they have to make sure that we distinguish ourselves from these godless communists by being aggressively Christian and then being like, what do you mean that there's a separation of church and state that was started from the very beginning of the whole thing? What? That's
mhm.
crazy. I have a lot of opinions about that, and I'm going to try to focus on what was happening in the 50s. So,
Oh,
they actually achieve their goals?
well,
Or
you also skipped one that really applies to you and me.
all right, well, yeah. Sex perversion or any inference to the same is strictly forbidden. We have to make sure that everybody is 100% cis het white people.
Mm-hmm. No
You
queers,
cannot
no
be an egg.
interracial.
Yeah, no, there's no mixing. We don't mix here. There are no eggs. There are no queers. Every single person in America, obviously, the entire time was heterosexual and God-fearing, and it was, wait, hang on. As per usual, they probably would consider everything to be my fault. My fault because I'm black and my fault because I'm Jewish. Wow.
That's the 1950s for you.
On the plus side, obviously, racism and anti-Semitism have gotten way. I am
Let's
having a moment.
yeah.
So, based on some of the villains that are actually making up our like some of the various like Silver Age rogues galleries, I mean, I'm not sure how much they actually did like with making all these rules, except for making artists sneakier, because I'm not gonna lie, the overly strict parents are the ones who have kids who are really, really good at hiding youthful indiscretions. And of course, this was in the McCarthy area where American citizens were encouraged to report on their neighbors for possibly being a little bit too left wing, aka not an aggressive capitalist. And there's no parallels today. There's definitely no government encouragement to drop a dime on your neighbors, and we're great, and we absolutely are totally respectable people because of the Comics Code Authority, right?
Yeah,
Our morals stayed
100%.
perfect, and we are as a whole blameless from everything because all of the villains got their comeuppance, and everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, there's a lot happening with that. But you know what?
yeah. It's kind of
Since we
funny though.
are, I was gonna say, since we're trying to do some escapism, how about we talk about some of these ridiculous behind villains that we've come across, huh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of funny the whole like certain guidelines they had for the comic authority. So they were like the villains have to get their comeuppance in the end. It's like cool. The villains escaped in the next issue and are right back to doing what they've done, and they've learned nothing from it.
You mean how Arkham Asylum has a revolving door?
They didn't even have Arkham Asylum back then. This was just regular prison.
Are they even trying? You know what? They're not. They're not. So let's talk about some of these like the ridiculous characters that our heroes have had to fight over the course of time. We have, for example, Kite Man.
Hell yeah.
He was a Charlie Brown. I'm sorry, Chuck Brown. They made Charlie Brown into a villain.
And traumatized by all of his lost kites, he became the kite.
Maybe just don't fly your kites by like a kite-eating tree, bro. Like, what is going on here? So, no, that is what a goofy. So he's a hang glider pilot. So like basically he just like is just like, "Ooh, I've got a good updraft. I'm going to commit crimes." How does that work in winter when there's no hot air to catch the updrafts?
Well, to be fair, we never saw him during winter, so it's very likely he took those months off.
Okay. I feel like that.
It's like, let's be honest, a lot of these villains were not like major popular reoccurring characters. They were not Jokers, they were not Penguins. They were, in many cases, just like for the sake of a single story. And some writers would bring them back, they were like, oh my god, this guy's so silly. For example, Kite Man.
Yeah, Kite Man made it into The Brave and the Bold and the Harley Quinn TV show. So like how does this person
Remember that when Kite Man first appeared, I think it was like the 1960s? And this was still like peak, Silver Age, but they were still kind of just playing around with just silly concepts and things like that. Brave and the Bold cartoon, that was a love letter to the Silver Age. That was the reason why he got brought in, because it was just like they brought in all the silliest stories. A lot of the episodes were based on old Silver Age stories.
I mean, that makes sense.
And with Harley Quinn, again, it was just kind of like playing on the idea of just like, we need a just lame villain, just somebody completely idiotic. So we have this romantic foil for Poison Ivy, who, despite the fact he's completely lame, she still developed a relationship with him.
Okay, but I have dated
He was a
some
parody from start to finish.
completely lame folks myself. I have dated
I
some
have.
absolute goobers, and at no point did you tell me like, "Hey, that's a goober. Why are you dating this goober?" That's because either you're a really good friend or because I'm not nice whenever it is that you are mean about my partner. Who knows? So, Kite Man is a really, really goofy villain.
He is, but some writers have tried to make him into less goofy. I think it was Tom King.
Mhm.
Somebody reintroduced Kite Man to DC after Rebirth. They were trying to get back to books or stories that people liked after the whole New 52, which created kind of a mess. And they went for a slightly darker story with him and tried to make him a bit more sympathetic, but he was still kind of a silly villain because it involved his son being killed.
That's
Yeah.
That's not a silly villain. that gets tragic. That's some
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze levels kind of thing, because he turned crazy because his wife was like in
No,
suspended animation, but
they did some things with Kite Man during the last few years to try to make him a bit more of a tragic villain. But the thing is, he's always going to be a silly character because it's kites.
it's I want desperately to take him seriously, but I cannot. And also,
You
realistically
shouldn't have
speaking,
to.
yeah, no, he really was like kind of an homage to Charlie Brown, and he would say
Oh,
like
he
rats.
not kind of.
So
He was straight up 100%. That's what they were doing. It was a parody.
even better, better. So another like sort of meta reference villain is Carl Lycos, aka Sauron, who was a vampiric pterodactyl like monster and hypnotic powers.
Yeah, his whole thing was that if he absorbed the energy of mutants, it would transform him into this bizarre pterodactyl monster, and he would gain hypnotic abilities and so on. He was one of those that's like people find him silly, but at the same time, it's kind of terrifying too because it's very much a body horror type villain. Like
Mm.
the artist who drew him when he was first introduced, it was unsettling because you're watching his body deform and shift and break, and he looked like the transformation was painful.
So like we're sitting here watching him do a full animorph situation.
Yeah,
That's a little bit horrifying.
yeah. Honestly, he was when they his introduction was when they started getting away from the no monsters kind of stuff because the comic book code adjusted over time. So the rules that you said at the start did not remain the same across all things,
Mhm.
especially when we started getting into the 70s, because I think he was introduced in the 1970s.
Yeah, let's see. 1969, August
All
69.
right, so
So,
on the border of the 70s, and remember, this is about the time that they started to relax on the idea of monsters being in. We were getting closer to the age where, drugs were allowed to be talked about, things like that.
drugs?
Oh, yeah.
I am so
I've
sorry.
mentioned Roy Harper's, like,
I grew up in the 90s and I had a whole lion like encourage me to like, dare to resist drugs.
have you
Having
refilled
books.
your vape yet? Have you?
I'm cutting that one. So Carl Lycos renamed himself Sauron
Well, it's kind of a
after the
split personality thing.
okay, but he also named himself after a character from Lord of the Rings books.
I mean, I think Sauron's an existing name even before the Lord of the Rings, so. But also the I thing could probably be a reference to that.
Yeah, the whole Palantir, like, we're going to, like, make things funky thing. That is wild. But yeah, like, who turns into a pterodactyl? Like, does he sit there and just, like, my hands are blending together and my arms are getting
Well,
uncomfortable?
it's an addiction for him. You know, it's like he is drawn to the energy. It's a vampiric thing, so it's like he needs the energy to survive and to process. But mutant energy causes him to mutate.
That seems stressful, honestly. That means you have to make sure that you are double checking that they are Homo sapiens, otherwise you're going to get in trouble. That is a weird weakness to have.
Well, it's the same thing with vampires. They're drawn to blood and all that stuff, and if they don't have it, they start to wither and all that. It's kind of the same issue, I'd imagine.
Yes, but in Interview with the Vampire, Claudia had Louis drink from like the Dead Boys, and that completely like wrecked his days.
I mean, he kind of can't control that part of it. That's the problem he has. Because it's like, also, he can't always tell who is a mutant. Like, if he feeds off of a regular human, he just, sort of gets energy.
Mhm.
Feeds off a mutant. The unfortunate thing, though, is, in his human form, he is a genius. There's a great story where he is dealing with Spider-Man and a bunch of students from the Xavier School.
Mhm.
And Spider-Man's like, with your intelligence, you could cure cancer. And he's like, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to do evil things. 100%, yeah.
Oh
Because
my
like when
God,
he's
it's Skeletor.
Sauron, he's just like, I'm evil. I'm bad.
I mean, is Carl nice? Like, do we have like kind of a Bob Century situation going on?
Kind of. I mean, it's like he's been portrayed as not being like a complete monster or something like that. He appeared in X-Men the animated series, and we saw that he was very regretful when he let himself transform. But again, he's an addict.
Well, I mean, that is fair. Addiction is a disease, I suppose, and so turning into a pterodactyl is sometimes a side effect. So a completely different and even goofier villain, though, the Eraser, who erases evidence of crimes for like a portion of the process.
Yeah, he was a fixer. He would go in and he would literally erase any evidence of a crime being committed to keep the police and Batman from being able to catch criminals. The thing
Yeah.
is, he took the theme a bit too literal and he wore a pencil eraser on his head.
Yeah, see, when that scene happened in Mystery Men with Pencilhead and Son of Pencilhead, I didn't realize that they were making a reference to like a goofy behind villain. Like, what is that? He's like, I erase crimes. I made a whole bunch of mistakes in college and people laughed at me, so now I erase crimes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
There's,
Silver Age, it's like villains would use the pettiest reasons to become a supervillain. I
I
mean,
mean,
this
that
is
is
the same.
a reason.
I mean, there's a character called the Penny Pincher, so
Well, okay, so apparently, though, his helmet has a special chemical compound that can erase even the smallest traces of forensic evidence. So it's just like, let's just like take care of like all of the DNA and everything. Let's make sure that, there's no fingerprints or anything going on.
yeah,
Doesn't,
but you also have to remember that this was the 50s. So forensics evidence and all that stuff was not what it is now. So it was probably a lot easier to get rid of that stuff.
you know what? That's fair because at that point you could just have your blood spilled all over the place, and as long as you like had your blood spill happen next to the victim blood spill, they're like, let's clean all this up.
Exactly.
You know what? I don't want to be a villain in the 50s because I don't want to be in the 50s, but I respect the villains of the 50s.
I mean, they made a theme and they committed to it.
Actually, no, I don't respect the villains of the 60s because Gagsworth, A. Gagsworthy, Joker's original sidekick.
Yep, a little person dressed up in a jester clown costume. He was, before Harley, was even like a sparkle in somebody's eye.
I mean, Gaggy came out in 1960s. I don't even know if like the Harley Quinn inventors were a sparkle in somebody's eye at that point.
Possibly. I'm not sure how old everyone is.
Harley came out in 92. Gaggy came out in 66.
Right, but I don't know. I'm not sure how old all the creators were on the show at the time, so.
That's fair, but the point remains that Gaggy could have been Harley's dad or something.
Oh, no. They floating timeline. They're probably about the same age.
That's fair, but...
And also, Harley and Gaggy have, I think, met since then. Gaggy was only appeared, I think, in like one or two books, because again, he was a joke character. He was supposed to be Joker's sidekick, and he made the Joker laugh and all that stuff. But eventually, he got phased out because he wasn't really an interesting character. But certain writers always love bringing back those obscure characters from back in the day, and Gaggy has appeared in the last few years, and I believe he's met both Harley and Harley's replacement, Punchline.
Okay, Punchline. There are some really dumb villain names, but you know what? Killer Moth exists. I can't get mad at Punchline when Killer Moth exists. How are you just gonna sit there and like, I am a moth. I am a ha ha ha, I am so bad. But I'm just like, bruh, you want to name yourself after something that gets trapped in candles? Like,
the funny thing is that he was trying to be a Batman parody. He was trying to be like the evil version of Batman when he was originally introduced.
Don't bats eat moths?
Yeah, the irony on that is not lost.
I mean, at least Reverse Flash had like the decency to sit there and like swap the color palette and just be like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna go and get your mom, but Moth?
Yeah, no, like I said, he was created to be the anti-Batman. He had his own Moth signal that villains would catch in the sky. He had a Moth cave. Moth related like car and everything. And yeah, he was just kind of like supposed to do all the stuff that Batman would do, but for the villains.
Did anybody call him Captain Butterfly to make him mad?
No, but it was 1950s, nobody was that witty.
Well, you know what? See, if they'd had more black people, then they would have had a much better situation going on.
Yeah, but he largely would have been a very forgettable character, but he also, his story ties into the origin of one of the most popular Batman characters, a certain redheaded, spin-off counterpart to the Bats, Barbara Gordon Batgirl, aka Oracle. Her very first villain was Killer Moth.
Wait, This is the same girl, though, who put on the whole costume to go to a party, and then she's just like, oh, this is so much fun. I'm going to go ahead and become a vigilante. Well, you know what?
So,
I
Killer
respect
Moth
that.
helped give us Batgirl.
And what did Captain Boomerang do? How does that work? Like, I understand, like, the conceit of a boomerang, like, you throw it, like, it pops the thing, and, like, theoretically it's supposed to, like, come back. But I
Well, I
don't
mean,
understand that.
he was an Australian, and all Aussies use boomerangs, right? Am I right? Yeah.
Mm.
And they, were playing on, again, like 1950 stereotypes of other countries. So it's like, oh, well, if he's from Australia, his weapon's got to be a boomerang.
Did
But,
he have unusually large size feet at all? Like, or like, oh, Captain Boomerang, maybe secret kangaroo.
I mean, we never really looked at his feet, so maybe. But yeah, it was like his boomerangs were not just a regular boomerang. He'd have exploding ones. He'd have specialty ones. So he had a variety of weapons in his boomerangs. But he was one of those characters that, I mean, the Flash's villains in general are all kind of interesting because some of them have like silly themes. We have like the Trickster, the Mirror Master, the Weather Wizard, Captain Boomerang. So the Flash's Rogues Gallery is one of those interesting because they're kind of silly, but at the same time they're so interesting because of the fact that they have a moral code.
Really?
So, well, yeah, they generally avoid killing if they can. They have rules, and they especially avoid trying to kill Flashes or Capes because they know that if they cross that line, they go from just being regular criminals who are just wanting to steal for money and a little bit of power to murderers, and they don't need that kind of heat on them.
No, no.
Which made what Captain Boomerang did unfortunate, because during the 90s, going into the 2000s, Boomerang kind of fell into a... He became more of a joke character. They stopped drawing him
More
as
of a joke character than a boomerang guy?
Yeah, because he got to the point where, well, Captain Boomerang, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started becoming more of a joke character, but not like in a funny haha and a sad way. Because, like, during the events of Identity Crisis, which we've talked about before, the Sue Dibney murder mystery story, Boomerang was being drawn as a overweight, fat, like balding loser who sold drugs, and just nobody took him seriously as a real villain anymore. Even his own friends in the Rogues Gallery.
I mean, they didn't take Thor seriously when he gained weight. In
Right, but because it's like originally he was portrayed as kind of silly, but at the same time he had friends and he was respected by the rogues. He didn't get that in the storyline, and he became such a loser that he just would take out any contract that somebody would hire him for. In one case was a murder. He was hired to kill a specific target, the father of Robin number 3, Tim Drake.
Yes, we talked about that, and Tim was on the phone when they mutually destructed. Yeah.
Eventually, he got replaced by his son, who, rather than being a villain, took on the Boomerang identity as a hero.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, he joined the Outsiders and was friends with Supergirl. And eventually, comic book shenanigans, Boomerang's back. He's better looking. He's no longer overweight and balding. And he's been readapted, thanks to the movies and stuff like that, into being a bit more of a stereotype of a drunk Australian.
Yeah, like I know that he existed because I watched the like Suicide Squad movies, but outside of that, I would have had no clue who this man was.
Yeah, I mean, the Flash's Rogues Gallery has never been as popular as Batman's or even Superman's to a lesser extent, but they do have a certain level of love about them, especially from Flash fans, and thanks to the TV series, a lot of those villains got in the spotlight.
That's fair. That's good. Yeah, like I said, I mostly know Reverse Flash. But there are so many characters there. Like so, like we've been getting like kind of like really like DC heavy, and I want to make sure that like we're kind of like sliding back to Marvel over here. So we have Stilt Man, who is the master of stilts, and as long as he has his stilts, he's invincible. He's unbeatable. He's a stilt walker.
Yeah, he had these like telescopic stilts that would allow him to increase his height and speed and move around and stuff like that. And he was a very I mean, even by the standards of superhero comics, he was very much like a joke character.
I mean, your power is to get tall, and not tall like in like the whole like, the 50-foot woman or like giant man kind of thing. It's just straight up tall. Like you just have
Yeah,
extra legs. How does that
yeah,
help? Because
yeah, he
you can
started
get
off.
AT-AT in like 2 seconds, bro.
Yeah, he started off as a Matt Murdock villain, Daredevil, and he was just trying to make it as a villain, and he
Is
never
the
really
premise
caught on.
that he could be like different heights and so like Daredevil would know where to punch him in the face?
Well, it was just kind of like he was able to, it's hard to explain because keep in mind I didn't read the Daredevil comic, so I'm going off
Mm.
of what I remember from it, and basically he could move in a way that Daredevil had trouble keeping up with,
Okay, that
if I
makes
remember
sense then.
correctly. And he was also a very smart inventor, and so he created like devices to like he created other like technology and stuff like that, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I mean, he has been adapted into other stories. I mean, he appeared in the Daredevil TV show. If I remember
I
correctly, I think he was the one who made Daredevil's costume. And you actually see his stilt legs in the background in one scene.
Yeah, does not make the character less stupid.
No, but
Not
there
even a
is
little
some,
bit.
but there is like a really sweet Spider-Man story
Hmm.
because he started off as a Daredevil villain, but he also appeared in Spider-Man books and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And there's this one story where we find out that Spider-Man is doing like a Make-A-Wish Foundation thing, and he's visiting
Okay.
a child. He's visiting a child at a hospital, and they are make believing that the kid is going to be a Spider Kid,
Okay.
and they have like the doctors in the hospital dressing up like different villains, and the two of them are going around fighting the bad guys and all that. And but the kid says that the big villain that they're fighting is Stiltman. Spider-Man's like very confused why of all of his villains this is considered like the big bad.
Hmm.
And it's because the kid just thought because Stiltman could get so tall that made him the most dangerous because he thought he was just too big. And it's like it's one of the sweetest little like Stiltman related stories,
So much. Kids are so dumb. But
says the
speaking,
mother.
I know, look, children are real dumb. There is a whole like subreddit about how children are just like a whew. But speaking of like the hospital that he was at, we've got to go to Morbius, the living vampire, or the Dr. Michael Morbius.
Uh-huh.
It's Morbin time. I cannot believe people were able to convince Sony to bring that movie back to the theaters through just memeing it to death.
Well, to be fair, I mean, nobody was asking them to bring it back to the theaters.
But somehow they still convinced Sony to do so.
Sony, here's the thing, they did not convince it. Sony just took the wrong thing from the memes, from the joke.
Hmm.
Because nobody was asking to see it in theaters. Nobody really saw it when it came back into theaters.
That's also true.
It was 100% just like, oh, well, people are making fun of it, so maybe people want to see it. It's like, no, no.
At what point do you think that Matt Smith realized that this was actually a ridiculous project and decided to just be like, I'm gonna have me a good time anyway?
I mean,
Like after
paycheck
he
was
read
probably
this, like the first page of the script, or like,
they waved a check in front of him. He's like, whatever.
you know what? I respect that because he just come off Doctor Who and he did like the last night in Soho or one night in Soho, which is definitely him being like, haha, I'm not. Oh, he was also in Terminator, I think. Like he was bald for a little
Possibly.
bit because of one of the Terminators. So anyway, like yay Matt Smith, even though it was like I know that technically Matt Smith is the villain in Morbius, and we don't really need to talk too much about Jared himself. I'm sure that Jared is off living his best life somewhere away from
He's going to
me.
be playing Skeletor in the new He-Man movie. These franchises.
I just wanted to go look at muscular men who are like wearing like, little teeny tiny outfits. Why did I go look at Jared Leto? Even if he is covered in blue paint. Boo.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
But
so
Morbius as a comic book character, I mean, he was kind of them trying to step around the monster rules, if I remember correctly.
fair.
So it's like he wasn't like a legit vampire, he was a pseudo vampire, but he was still a blood sucking creature of the night.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that like I wasn't just like being like like is he not still a vampire? Like I like are we just like we did not start fucking
He wasn't
vampires
like
that soon, did we?
in the Marvel comics and stuff like that, vampires, like real vampires, are like the Dracula vampire. Who Dracula is a existing character in the Marvel Cinematic or not cinematic, in the Marvel universe.
I mean, Blade exists, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's like not one of those where it's like, oh, he's just a story made up. No, it's like he's walks around, he's got kids, he's tried to like turn Storm into a vampire.
He's the great master.
Mm-hmm.
Vader. Buffy reference.
And you're so proud of yourself.
I am. But you
yeah,
want to know
like,
who is
no, we didn't
really
even get
too proud of themselves.
Oh, I was gonna say it's like, but as you know, silly as Morbius was in the comics, he was still like he has a fan base. He just not really a carrying his own solo movie. It's funny what they did to him in the cartoon, the Spider-Man cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't show him biting people and sucking the blood out like a regular vampire. So do you remember what they did?
No.
They gave him suckers on his hands.
Oh my God.
So he had like these little mouths on his hands, and he would like slap you with it on your neck, and he'd sucking out not the blood, the plasma. You could not say blood, but it had to be plasma.
That's actually even more horrifying. At least, like, with the bite, it could just like look like he's trying to give you a hickey. I watched Pan's Labyrinth. I remember the Pale Man. That mess was like unpleasant. Absolutely not. Nope.
Yeah, no. There's a reason why, like, one of the 90 character Generation X, their villain was a character called Plate, and he had like these little like mouths with like fangs and stuff like that on his hands, and it was like, okay, this is terrifying.
Mm-mm.
Doing it in a cartoon doesn't make it any less terrifying.
Nope. There's a lot of stuff that I can deal with. Body horror is not one of them. When husband guy watched Parasite, that one anime, I had to leave the room because it was too much body horror for me.
You still haven't watched The Owl House because it's too much like body horror.
And it's gay as balls, but guess what? I don't do body horror. It is uncomfortable for me. You know what I need? I need a villain who honestly like takes themselves out at the same time that they're taking other people out, like Asbestos Lady.
Oh God, Asbestos Lady.
Why is Asbestos Lady like, oh, what do I going to do with myself? I'm going to cover myself in asbestos, and then I'm flame-proof. Ha ha!
I mean...
Actually makes sense if you're fighting the torch, yes.
So, Asbestos
I recognize
Lady...
that.
Yeah, Asbestos Lady actually predates the comic code. Like, she's from the Golden Age, not even the Silver Age.
Wow.
So, she was from an era where people thought that asbestos was safe and everybody could use it, and they probably like gave it to kids to play in.
2025? So, yeah. So, to a certain extent, I get being the flame retardant character, especially if you're going to be fighting.
She had a mask of asbestos.
I don't know who she hurt more. Herself?
Oh, herself, 100%.
Honestly, like, I'm just like, I can't even sit there and be like...
No, she's one of those characters that they ever brought back into storytelling. I don't think she's ever been used since the Golden Age, but if they ever brought her back, she would definitely be, like, in a cancer ward.
Yeah, because that's... Asbestos is not good for this. And just, honestly, like, hanging out with all of that, that's...
Because it's like, this was the original Human Torch. Not Johnny Storm of the Fantastic Four, but the John Hammond one.
Uh-huh.
But I would love to see him visiting her. And she's just like, oh, I'm dying. It's like, yeah, I wonder why.
I mean, to be fair, they did not know at the time. She didn't know at the time.
Right, but like in modern stories, it's like, I would just kind of love...
That would be hilarious, though. It's like, hey, so, what'd we learn?
And the question would be like, would she blame herself or would she find some way to blame the Human Torch?
Obviously, she'd find some way to blame the Human Torch. If the Human Torch was just letting her do what it is that she wanted to do, she wouldn't have had to sit there and wrap herself up in asbestos to not have him mess with her.
I mean, that's fair, but every so often you get the villains who actually, like, realize the shit that they messed up. I mean, you remember the Mad Moth from Teen Titans?
Is it me? Am I the villain? I don't think I'm the villain.
Oh, no, it's funny, it's like, he was, like, a character from like the 60s, just like he was presented essentially in the cartoon. But when they reintroduced him in the 90s, he had settled down with. He was a fashion designer, and he was he worked with the Titan team of the time in the 90s. And he was just like, "Oh yeah, you guys made me turn my life around." It's like, "Oh, that's nice."
You know what? Honestly, I feel like villain-wise, that's a pretty solid note to end on. Like the one who turns their life around and becomes a good person. Although
we don't get that a lot.
Did Daredevil have, like, in the TV show, didn't Daredevil have the guy who used to make all the suits for people and then turned around? And then She-Hulk actually got in trouble because the superhero designer didn't want to talk to her after.
Yeah, but that was a different storytelling universe because in the comics, generally She-Hulk gets her costumes from the Wasp. because in the comics, the Wasp is not a scientist. She is a fashion designer and socialite.
Wait, we're talking about Janet?
Yeah, Janet Van Dyne is a fashion designer. She does know science because her husband was Hank Pym, but she predominantly was a fashion designer. She owns a company. She designs the costumes for most of the Avengers.
That is actually really cool. Wait, so this lady's actually Edna Mode. Oh my god. Oh my
Yeah.
god. She's actually Edna
a
Mode.
recurring thing back in like the Avengers for a few years was she was constantly changing her costume. She probably had the most costume changes of any Avenger.
Also, I don't think Edna Mode would have let Hank get away with some of the things that he did, actually, now that I think of it.
No, but the thing is, Janet came a long way from what she was presented as a result of the times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she was the chairwoman of the Avengers for a good long while. She led the team. She currently is still working with the Avengers off and on. She is, interestingly enough, raising her kind of stepdaughter.
Oh.
Yeah, in the comics, the Wasp that we saw in the MCU, Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Hope doesn't really exist as she does in the comics.
Okay.
Hank and Janet never had children together.
Oh.
Instead, Hank had a wife before Janet, and that wife was kidnapped and killed, but what Hank didn't realize was that she was pregnant at the time with their daughter, Nadia.
Okay.
And Hank died and became Ultron, and weird things happened. But when Nadia joined the Avengers and stuff like that, Janet took her in and started raising her.
Aww.
Granted, Nadia is like 17 or 18 years old, but Janet's being a mother.
I respect that, but also it's way easier to be a mom after the kid is potty trained, because that is a current struggle that we're going through. All right, so now that we've talked about all of these villains, let's take a quick break and sort of reset ourselves so we can think about what's happening on the week ahead. Hey, welcome back. So this week ahead is going to be a super busy one in the DC and or Marvel universes. How do you know? Well, DC actually put out an entire calendar with canon dates for all kinds of birthdays and events. And Marvel actually put out a week-by-week breakdown of all of the things that have happened for their 80th anniversary. So for the events coming up this week, the anniversaries of this week, in 2000, speaking of things that are 25 years old, the original X-Men film debuted in theaters. The original X-Men film. Yeah. Hugh has been completely miscast in the sense of what Wolverine is supposed to look like for 25 years. I'm not mad about it, but he is technically. So we also have the anniversary of the introduction of Adam Warlock in Fantastic Four, it's number 67, in 1967. And we also have, in 1983, Ray Bill debuting in Thor number 337.
Alien Horse Thor. That's what he is, an alien horse thing.
Alien Horse Thor. Okay. You know what? If, what is it? What is the frog version of Thor called? Like, there's a
Thor?
Frog Thor? I don't know. They're one of them. If we can have Frog Thor, we can have weird horse Thor, I suppose.
Well, I mean, he's an alien, but he looks a lot like.
All right, I'll take it. So, are there any premieres happening this week that you're excited about?
Well, we do have the premiere of Superman coming up.
All right, James Gunn, this is your chance to make me believe that a man can fly. Barring that, you can make me believe that Crypto is an adorable, wonderful, lovely dog who should be my puppy. Like, that's your job, James, is to make me upset that Crypto isn't my puppy. I believe in you. Don't mess it up.
I am so excited for this. It would be nice, like I said in a previous episode, to have a Superman who just kind of embraces the fun of, Superman comics. We got Crypto, who is the bestest boy in the universe. We've got, Lois Lane being a badass.
Somebody commented that Nicholas Hoult has played the most evil character in the entire universe and also Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how that goes. Also, I'm not going to lie, that Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor was twitchy in a way that I don't feel like Lex is supposed to be.
It felt like lazy commentary on millennials in any kind of position of power.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they tried to turn him into a Eisenberg type, or not Eisenberg,
Like
Zuckerberg.
Eisenberg was the one who played him.
No, Zuckerberg, the millennial billionaires kind of thing. But it's just, they didn't give us a Lex Luthor. They gave us, like, do you remember that Superman, or not Superman, Lex Luthor's nephew from, like, Superman 3, I think it was? He was played by the guy from Pretty in Pink.
Jon Cryer?
It kind of felt like this was an updated version of Jon Cryer's character from that Superman movie. So I'm very happy to see the Lex Luthor we're getting here, where he is more serious, more Machiavellian, more, manipulative, and...
So the kind of person who we can actually expect to become president someday. Yeah, because Mark Zuckerberg's not going to become president of anything. I don't even know if he's president of Facebook half the time.
Yeah.
So
no, but Luthor, the one that we see in the trailers for Superman, him, I believe, could win the presidency.
All right, well,
that's scary, that's terrifying, but...
I mean, a little bit, but at least he's competent, even if he's evil. There's something to be said about having a competent evil leader. But, that's why I'm looking forward to seeing what Dr. Doom does.
I'm just going to point this out. Lex Luthor, when his presidency ended, it ended because he put on a suit of armor and tried to beat up Superman over Metropolis.
Well, that's just poor choices. Well, unfortunately, listeners, we have in fact come to the end of our podcast. I know, you're clearly devastated about it. How is this over so soon? Well, good news! Our next episode is going to be coming out in a week. So you're more than welcome to listen to this episode again if that is not fast enough.
Nerd Cred takes time to build.
Yeah, but it's much like going to the gym. Sam consistently goes, and I run to the refrigerator. One of us actually knows what's going on in the nerd world. One of us has like a strong appreciation for the popcorn that you get at the movie theaters.
This feels like a very muddled metaphor.
It is a bit of a ooh. But you know what? There's some movie theaters that serve mojitos, and so if we're talking about muddling, maybe we should consider going to that. Like, I'm pretty sure that Alamo Drafthouse actually has that, so that's where I'm going to go see Superman, actually.
Well, unfortunately, I will probably either be seeing it in Minneapolis if I have some time, or I'll have to wait until I get back into LA, because, alas, the Uncanny Experience will be interfering with it.
Technically, it's not a Marvel movie, so therefore your streak has not been messed up.
Oh, no. My streak will remain for the Marvel movies, so...
That's all that matters. All right. So, well, it's time to mention, though, that we have an Instagram at Up Your Nerd Cred Pod. We're on Apple and Spotify and YouTube, and we are expanding our reach.
And if you have any burning questions that you want us to discuss so that you can up your nerd cred, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave comments, and if we pick your question, we'll shout you out in the discussion segment.
Also, please make sure that you get your friends to like and subscribe to the pod, and family, and coworkers you trust not to be weird, and randos on the bus,
And good night, everybody.
Ba